Hi everybody, BigBong here, and today I would like to talk about a show that has been on Netflix top 10 series for a little while now, Emily in Paris. Now it's definitely not my type of show, but I've seen a lot of reactions on the internet since the show was made public, and you're probably thinking it's another reaction video. Yes, but this one is gonna be a little different because I'll be reacting to other people's reaction. It's a new concept, it's like the inception of reactions. Look, I'm even wearing my marinière for the occasion. First of all, let's get one thing out of the way. This show is absolutely a cocktail of stereotypes about France and the French culture. And I understand why some people are mad or feel insulted, but what I'll seem to be doing today is to step back a little bit and maybe play the devil's advocate and see if the existence of the show is such a bad thing after all. Alright then, let's see some YouTubers' reaction.
Everybody is mean. Like, everybody is mean, everybody has an attitude.
Bonjour la plouc.
Bonjour la plouc.
Is everybody really mean in Paris? Well, I guess it's like any other big cities. A lot of people are stressed out or busy and they don't have time to play around, but I guess there are mean people and less mean people. The problem is that, and some studies show it, is the fact that we're wired to be more affected by bad experiences. For example, if your boss tells you 10 times how good you are and how grateful he is to have you in his team, but then there's this one time when you screw up and he's actually really mad at you, you'll remember this one time way more than the 10 other times he told you how good you were. So I suppose, and that's just my humble opinion, that we could be doing that when we travel. For example, when we have a really nice day and then there's just one bad experience, a pickpocket, or somebody who was really rude to us, and we generalize it to the whole population. So obviously, when you're a celebrity like Scarlett Johansson, it might be a little different, but let me know how your experience was if you've ever been to Paris, whether it was good or bad. So I personally wouldn't say mean like it's portrayed in the show, but maybe more what I would call nonchalance, which is perfectly embodied by the character of Sylvie, the fact of being really indifferent in everything you do, and also the tendency to be negative or pessimistic. Again, not everybody's like that, but you can definitely feel it in the general atmosphere. Attends, mais tu veux devenir entrepreneur? Mais tu sais que tu vas devoir payer tes impôts toi-même, hein? Et que la majorité des entreprises sont faillites en moins de 5 ans. If you think about it, France and the French people are famous for their frequent strikes and protests. So if someone decides to make a show about France and the French culture, it shouldn't strike as a surprise to receive such backlash. So a good verb to know in French is rouspéter, which means to grumble. Rouspéter. And the funny thing is that péter means to fart. There is also the verb rouméguer, which means exactly the same thing but which is used only in the south of France, sometimes specifically to talk about Parisians and their attitude.
Bonjour. Une pain au chocolat.
So here the joke is mainly that Emily has trouble pronouncing un pain au chocolat. Un pain au chocolat with the un at the beginning, and you don't say the T of chocolat. And that's the joke, okay? That's not very funny, but well, that's the joke. In real life, this is not the problem at all. First, she doesn't say bonjour.
It is so true. The first thing you should say when you enter a store, or if you meet someone, whether it's a stranger or someone you know, is to say hello. If you don't, some people might even ignore you until you do. Others might even reply back, bonjour, merci, vous connaissez pas, meaning you don't know hello and thank you. So if you ever plan to go to Paris, you don't even need to speak the language. Just be polite and people will like you. Now that I think about it, it's pretty much the same in any country, right? You can even use bonjour instead of excusez-moi, which you probably guess means excuse me.
Bonjour.
Another recurring comment is the size of her apartment. I don't think it can be called a chambre bonne because that should be at the very top floor. And it's absolutely true, some buildings don't have elevators. Maybe that's the secret why French people stay so fit. I myself used to live in a chambre de bonne when I was a student, and I can tell you that it's a completely different experience. It was a 9 square meter studio. I had to share the toilet in the corridor with all the neighbors. In fact, I had a sofa bed that I couldn't open fully because I didn't have the space to do so. And on top of that, I didn't have the view of a classical chambre de bonne because I had a skylight type of window. In a real chambre de bonne, they wouldn't have been able to shoot because there is literally no space for the camera. But I appreciate the effort to teach something about the Parisian lifestyle and the houseman's type of architecture. But if you think about it, it's not the first time an American show portrays an unrealistic apartment size. In New York City, for example, just think of Dana Barrett in Ghostbusters, Dylan played by Justin Timberlake in Friends with Benefits, or Carrie Bradshaw in Sex and the City, who I should probably point out is the same director as Emily in Paris, so not really a surprise. Now, what I enjoyed about most reactions is the fact that they were measuring pros and cons, and not only criticizing what was wrong with the show. And what's really nice about Emily in Paris is the fact that French characters are played by French actors, unlike many movies or shows produced in the States.
Pardon. Bonsoir. Le monsieur attire une réservation?
I'm sorry, I don't speak.
But this is a French restaurant, no?
That's definitely not a French actor. So if you've just watched the show or if you're about to do that, well, it's good to acknowledge that it's a show and therefore fictitious. Just like Beauty and the Beast, which I should probably remind is originally a French novel.
Return to the Britishest part of France.
I can't remember what.
Crazy old Maurice.
Giving her a suite in the East Wing.
I don't know if Netflix should add a disclaimer at the beginning just in case people think everything portrayed in the show is real, but if you want to see the not so glamorous side of the city, I recommend the Trailer Party made by Topico. Now, even if it's not my type of show, there were things I particularly enjoyed, things that people living in Paris might take for granted, like places I miss very much. And the way they are highlighted in the show is very beautiful and make me proud. I'm happy to see places I used to hang out, like the Jardin du Palais Royal, the Opera, even though there are many tourists visiting, sometimes too many we might think. As Parisians, let's not forget that these people come from far away to see these places. Alright, so to conclude, Darren Star, the creator of the show, shouldn't feel sorry for what he did. And now with everything that's happening in France, we value freedom of thoughts and expression more than ever. It's overall not really accurate nor realistic, but I'm sure a lot of people enjoyed the show, and it's a great publicity stunt for our beloved city. And it's a great way once again for French people to rediscover how other countries might see them, not to mention that all the reactions we looked at today resulted from the show. So at the end of the day, I don't think that making the show was such a bad thing, but that's just my opinion. Again, if anyone watching this video has ever been to Paris, let us know in the comments how your experience was, and I'll see you very soon for more videos. Au revoir!